Welcome, foolish mortals, to Halloween Treats, presented by the Look Back Machine. For the entire month of October, we bring you 31 episodes on 31 flicks. So sit back and relax on your broomstick. We have blood-curdling boogeyman and sadistic serial killers. From castles to were-rabbits to spine-chilling spine-tinglers. Oh, but that's not all. It's only a bit. There's also Dahmer, Dracula, and Wallace and Gromit. So turn down the lights and turn up the sound. And ready your heart, for it's about to pound. Because there's Halloween film history abound. Happy Halloween from the Look Back Machine. Ernest R. Dickerson began his career as a cinematographer for Spike Lee, but quickly branched out into making his own films. In 1995, he earned the opportunity to direct Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. Tales from the Crypt began as an EC comic book series in the 1950s, but it gained its lasting fame from its 1989 horror anthology series on HBO with The Crypt Keeper. The franchise decided to cash in on its television popularity at the movie box office. The plan was to release 3 movies nationwide, which eventually only became 2 films, Bordello of Blood and Demon Knight. However, Demon Knight isn't special because it's a crypt movie. It's historically relevant to film history because of the maneuvers of its director, Ernest R. Dickerson. With one simple casting choice, Dickerson gave rise to the Black Final Girl, who not only survives, but saves the entire world. This is the story of Demon Knight. Director Ernest R. Dickerson.
You know, my agent told me about it. I went in and talked to them about it. And it actually, when I went in to meet on it, I was in the middle of doing the final sound mix of Surviving the Game. So when we were going to do the final mix playback, I got Gil Adler and his partner, Alan, to come to the playback so they could see the film, so they could see Surviving the Game. And it seems like that's what sold them on it. You know, I mean, like whenever you go in and do these films, you know, when you have to prove yourself, you do the dog and pony show, you know, explaining how you see the movie, how you would do this, how you would do that. It seemed to work. I guess maybe the final thing that convinced them was seeing Surviving the Game, seeing that I could handle action and horror, because you know there were horror elements in Surviving the Game. You know, one of the things that I was trying to do at that point was actually put Black actors and actresses in roles that weren't necessarily written for them. You know, in Surviving the Game, the character that Ice-T wound up playing was an African American. The first person I wanted, the studio wouldn't go for him, you know, and they were trying to get me to hire Charlie Sheen for that role. But I had recently seen Ice-T in Trespass, and I thought he did a pretty good job. And so, they said if you're going to hire an African American for it, the one person we would consider would be Ice-T. So I met with Ice, went over his house, we talked about it, and I think I got him jazzed up to do the role, and he did. And so, that's what I tried to do, put African Americans in roles that weren't necessarily written for them, but who I knew could really work, with the story being told.
So for Demon Knight, Dickerson decided to throw Jada Pinkett's name into the ring for the role of Geraldine, a convict on a work release, who becomes an unlikely hero.
Well, I think Jada herself got the role. I was pushing her to Joel Silver, and he was a little bit reluctant, and so I arranged a meeting between Jada and Joel. He had somebody else in mind that he wanted to use. But after I saw Jada in Menace to Society, I wanted, I said, this is my Geraldine. So I was able to arrange a meeting a sit down meeting between Joel and Jada, and she went in, and after that meeting, he said, "Hey, she's great. I love her. Okay, yeah, let's use her. Cool." So I think she was able to sell herself, and I think she created a memorable character. I think it was a good move on my part, and I'm glad that they didn't fight me on it. After that, what was great is that she was the kind of character that if I put a black woman in the role, you kind of think that she's probably going to die soon. Probably going to be one of the first to go, but she winds up being the next Demon Knight, the heroine of the piece. So, and I just love that little deception there. Yeah, I don't think nobody seemed to realize that's what it was. Because I kept telling people, hey, I did the first movie where a black woman saves the world, and they said, oh, really? Okay. The weekend that it came out, I noted that I think it was the L.A. Times that did an article on black film directors, and my name wasn't mentioned. And and the weekend it came out, the number one film was John Singleton's film, I believe it was Higher Learning, and the number two film was Demon Knight. When I wasn't mentioned in the article, I was just curious, how come I didn't get mentioned in the article? I tracked down the writer and I asked her, I said, why haven't, you're talking about this art, you have this article on black filmmakers, but I wasn't included. How come? She said, well, these are filmmakers that have done a film recently. And I said, well, my film was just released this weekend. And I told her, I said, see, you blew it, because if you'd have done your research, you would have found out that the number one and the number two film came out this weekend were helmed by black directors. And, you could have made, an interesting comment of that with your story. So a lot of people didn't really start bringing it up until really just a couple of years ago. The fact that I had the first black final girl or final lady.
However, the whole thing almost fell apart because Pinkett decided to cut and dye her hair after she was cast, which is a Hollywood no-no, and has led actors and actresses in the past to be replaced. And Pinkett was even more of a risk because she wasn't a star yet.
I think it was like 2 days before we started shooting. And she went off and she called me up and she says, hi, Ernest. I got to tell you something. I colored my hair. I said, what? I said, what color is it? She said, well, it's kind of platinum, And so she came over to my place and showed it to me. And it was like platinum, it was like white, white. And I said, okay. I think there could be something here, but put some color in it, make it more blondish, more gold, put some more yellow in it. And so she did. She went back, and so there it was. I think it really contributed to the look of that character. I thought she was really very pretty with it. The great thing about it is when we were shooting Demon Knight, Joel Silver had a reputation for being very intrusive on his sets, but he had problems on another film that was shooting in Australia. And so all the time we were shooting, it was me and Gil Adler, and Gil, supported, all of my creative decisions.
Dickerson's creativity flowed throughout the production. He drew from Hong Kong action films and, despite being on just one soundstage, managed to create an entire world.
The script was set all in one night, and it was set in a desert. And I just felt that it would have been counterproductive to be shooting this thing on the desert at night. I convinced Gil, let's find a way of doing this on a sound stage. And we actually were able to find a decommissioned airplane hangar at Van Nuys Airport. And that's where we shot the whole thing, except for the car chase in the beginning, and then at the end when Jada's character gets on the bus. But all the rest of that was shot on the soundstage, and it just gave us so much more control. We could shoot during days. We could have a 7 a.m. call and go until 7 p.m. So we didn't all have to start living like vampires to shoot the film. So I thought that was good. That had its problems. There were birds living in the set, so we had to always figure out how to deal with the birds because they did give us some sound problems. It became a sound editing problem that we wound up having to solve. The evolution of the demons because the idea was that the demons were humans who had gotten corrupted by their own individual weaknesses, their own foibles. And so originally they were more human, but it just didn't seem like it was enough, and I wanted to go even deeper than that. So I started working with the effects supervisor, and we started coming up with the demons as they are in the film, which was really interesting because these most of these folks were the demons were played by mime actors, and they had to learn how to walk on these little stilts that gave their leg that forward bent, which was really interesting. It was hard for them to walk upstairs. I came up with the idea. I guess it got kind of influenced by Alien. I just felt, the concept was always the way to kill the demons is to shoot them in the eyes. And I felt that was like a little bit too easy. So I figured, the eyes being the window to the soul, the energy force that is the soul, you shot them in the eyes, it's got to come out. So my whole thing was, you shoot them in the eyes, you better duck. You might have killed the demons, but the energy coming out could possibly get you. You got so bang bang and duck. And so we were able to like really work that out pretty cool. And I just felt that it added to the whole dynamic possibilities of it. And even with the concepts of the demons themselves, the prostitute, since everybody's weakness is what contributed to what kind of demon they became, the idea I had for the prostitute was that her stomach would actually turn into a vagina dentalis. And and me and Todd, we actually did, we did conceptual drawings, where the idea, her stomach would open up, it would be vertical, and this tongue would come out and wrap around Charles Fletcher's neck and pull him in, try to pull him in. And but unfortunately, one of the executive producer's wives saw that concept, and she said, "No way you're going to put that in this movie." So that died. So he wound up turning her just into a regular, regular nasty looking demon.
And you'll love Demon Night.
They're here! The demons are here!
And ladies, if you think Demon Night is too gross and yucky...
Wow!
Thank you!
Dickerson would return to horror in 2001 and direct Bones, the Snoop Dogg-led vehicle. Bones may seem like a casting gimmick off Snoop's popularity, but Dickerson again elevates his material. The film's practical effects are stunning, and with Dickerson's direction of Snoop, it makes him look like a star. It also harkens back to the style of blaxploitation films from the 1970s, and like those films, it is infused with subtle commentary on the effect of the introduction of crack to black neighborhoods.
If I remember correctly, Snoop was already attached, and I remember going in and interviewing for it, basically saying that I did not want to have to rely upon CGI for the film, that I wanted the horror effects to have a more tangible, realistic, visceral quality to it, and New Line seemed to like that idea. Also, I think one of the reasons I got Bones too was because there was another horror project at New Line that I was attached to that wound up falling through with my involvement in it. At any rate, that was the original Blade project. So we started putting it together. It was great designing the character, the look of the character. I think he really identified with Jimmy Bones. I think he liked him as a character, and he was supposed to be our hero who was wrong. And so I think he definitely liked him. And I had just met Pam Grier because there was a low-budget film that we were possibly going to do together, and I met with her and we talked with her. I really spent a couple of hours talking with her and had a great time. She was just wonderful. But that project fell through. And when Bones happened, I said, hey, let me get Pam because she still looks young enough. At that time, she still looked young enough to be able to play a younger version of herself, and then age her later. With not much. I mean, she doesn't have to age at all. So that worked out really good. And Snoop loved it. When I told Snoop who was going to play his lady, he was beside himself. He was, because he had been a big Pam Grier fan for so long. And you've never seen anything till you see Snoop blush. He kissed it, when he had to kiss Pam, and they're into it. And I said, cut. And he just got real sheepish and had this little blush on his face. And I said, man, you blushing? He said, yo, I grew up dreaming about this woman. Now I get to kiss her in a movie? Damn. So, I think Snoop has always appreciated the fact that I did that. It's real interesting because Snoop would always be on time. He always knew his lines. He was dedicated to doing it. Of course, he was smoking a lot of weed. He was blunted most of the time. And I had to ask him not to do it just one time, just for safety's sake. And that's for the shot where he's walking up the staircase where we had the flames on the walls towards the end. I actually had to have him close to fire. It was controlled, but he was going to be close to it. I just said, yo, man, we'll do it first. Just don't smoke anything until after we do that. And he was cool with that. But he really enjoyed it. And Vancouver loved him. We would go with him to some of the nightclubs, man, and it was like the Red Sea of people would just part as he walked in, and there was just so much love there. One of the things we noticed when we were in Vancouver, it was the young white kids who would mob him. He always had tapes for them, and CDs that he would give out, but they would mob him. We shot in a couple of suburban neighborhoods, and young white teenagers, they were just there. They were mobbing him. And so, just trying to tell the powers that be that, hey, look, he's got a huge white following. You got to sell this movie in those neighborhoods, but they confined most of their advertising to the black neighborhoods. And it was, and I think because of that, we did not have a great opening weekend money-wise. I'm glad that, it's, that over the years, it's retained its popularity. But I think it could have done much better in the theaters than it did, because people that did go to see it, at all the test screenings, always enjoyed it. So, that's just what happens sometimes. Sometimes the formulas that the marketing people have don't work in every single case. And I think Bones was a film that needed to be dealt with as its own, with its own set of criteria in terms of marketing it. Well, yeah, I'm trying to remember because it did get recut because I had a slow build. I didn't. They were upset that there wasn't a killing in the first 5 minutes. The way we shot it, there was more of a slow build in the very beginning, so that the horror didn't really happen. I mean, I think that the slow build always works. It's you tease the audience, and you wait, you let them wait for the stuff to happen. And so, but they wanted a murder. They wanted a killing in the first 5 minutes. And I mean, I have to admit, when we first showed it to them, the executives had just spent the day looking at 2 movies that were disastrous for them. They just looked at a first cut of the Adam Sandler film, I think Little Nicky, I think we played the Devil's Son, and also the Warren Beatty film, Town and Country. So they just watched those 2 movies back to back. So by the time they came in to look at Bones, they were not in a good mood. So, so I think we were screwed from the very get-go. But that's what it was for me. I wanted to slowly build up and add the mystery, see the mystery to it, and gradually see the mystery instead of really plunging the audience right into it from the very beginning. New Line was thinking, we're going to market this mainly for a black audience. We got to give them a lot of blood and guts first off. Whereas I was going for something a little bit more nuanced than that. And I think, and our cut did that. My editor on the film was the same editor who had cut Demon Knight for me, Stephen Lovejoy, who became, my editor for several years. And I was really trying to do a really interesting ghost story, but the studio wanted bam, bam, bam right away.
Thanks for listening to Halloween Treats. presented by the Lookback Machine. Stay tuned for the entire month of October for an episode every single day till November.